let's go back to Ninth Circuit Judge Fletcher, who says
a great jurist. He's a good man.
Well, he's a brilliant writer too.
He is.
I've read his dissenting opinion.
Yeah. He's professor of law also.
Oh, I didn't realize he's a teacher too.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go back to Judge Fletcher on the Ninth Circuit. He is very clear that if there was a new trial granted and David Hinkson's allowed to present this evidence about Schwisser's perjury, that there won't be a case.
That's it. They have what they call the 5 Harrington tests, and David passes all of them. One of them is he likely to be released if he gets a fair trial?
Is he likely to be found not guilty?
Found not guilty. And Fletcher, under the laws, he pointed out, and brought out things that none of them caught. None of them. Just Fletcher and his law clerks or whoever is on this. And he said that there's no question David would be acquitted. And Margaret McEwen, she was the third judge. She was the dissenting judge on the first appeal, and she said everything the opposite, everything that Judge Fletcher and Judge Hugg determined, and Judge Hugg was one of the senior appellate court judges. And then the chief judge later changed on the appeal. He changed his vote in favor of David because he said that the arguments were more persuasive because he got additional evidence. But I don't know how much time they got, but we were allocated like 20 minutes. We thought we had 20 minutes before the judges initially, and we wound up getting more like an hour. But what are you going to do? What can you tell people in just a few minutes? And when you got 11 judges there, and you got somebody like Fletcher that knows the case, he knew all the details. And the other side, they just went with Bia, and whatever he said, the rest of them. And I challenge any one of those appellate court judges to a debate on David's case. Because they don't know what they're talking about. They did not know the case, and their rulings were based on fantasy, and we can prove it beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, beyond a shadow of a doubt.
So here we got your son convicted by the testimony of one witness, Schwisser, who you could prove was a forger, but the judge wouldn't allow the evidence. And Schwisser testified that the solicitation, the offer of money in exchange for murder was made in a face-to-face conversation. But he testified that it happened at a time when David was in Europe, out of the country.
Right.
And his passport proves his alibi.
Right.
I don't see how much better an alibi you can have than an entry visa into Europe.
Right. But if the jurors don't know that he was there and they can't see proof of it, what are they going to do?
It's a kangaroo court.
Yeah.
It's a sham trial.
Yeah. And even to this day, even though there's one juror that said, had I have known that Schwisser was a fraud, I would have acquitted. Here we had a prosecutor who is a black robe prosecutor who was a judge, who is participating in the scam from day one. Schwisser actually walked out of his office during the trial when he was discussing things with the judge while the trial was going on, and was caught red-handed by Wes Hoyt. Red-handed. And he never denied that he was there, but they said that it didn't make any difference. It doesn't make any difference. You don't know what was said. How do we weren't there. All we know is that he was improperly talking with the witness, which he was not supposed to do.
Yeah, it's judicial misconduct on its face.
It is.
Yeah.
Right. But then who are you going to appeal to? We've gone through the whole thing. how many appeals? First appeal, then the en banc with 11 judges, then the super en banc with 11 judges, then the Supreme Court, and then back to the writ of mandamus to recuse Tallman, and then now we're in the COA is asking for a certificate of appealability, and that's being bandied about. And so what do they can see that their case is really in jeopardy. So what can they do? Find another way of getting another charge on David. So accuse David now of having somebody hired to go kill somebody else. And who's supposed to be paying for all this? I am. So now they're doing this one, and so now I'm suddenly some kind of a murder for hire participant.
During the trial of Dave Hinkson's case in January of 2005, which was a 2-week plus trial, right in the middle of the trial, one of the prosecutors walked by counsel table where I was sitting with David Hinkson and just casually dropped a sheet of paper on the table. And when I picked it up and read it, it was an FBI 302, which is a witness statement. It's basically the way they collect information. An FBI agent, in this case, wrote down her version of what the witness was saying. But what this 302 said was that I, as David Hinkson's attorney, was participating in a brand new murder for hire scheme that involved the attempt to murder 22 people, including the sitting judge, that is Judge Tallman.
So you're in trial.
Right in the middle of trial.
You're being accused of
participating
in solicitation of murder for hire 22 alleged victims.
Correct.
Including the judge.
Right.
You're in front of.
This is the FBI just making it up as they go along. Let me tell you how it came about. I enraged the FBI because they had sicked a guy by the name of Chad Kroner on David Hinkson while he was in jail waiting trial. They like to foment as many charges as they can, so they decided that this Chad Kroner was vulnerable. He wanted to get some time off of his sentence. He wanted to keep his mother from going to jail because there were criminal charges pending against her. And so he said he would be their confidential informant. So they locked him in a cell with David Hinkson and 4 other people. It was a 6-person cell. Chad Kroner allegedly, according to everybody in that cell, climbed up on the top bunk and sat there and had no interaction with anybody, except one little question he asked Dave Hinkson about the IRS, something about filing a tax return. David Hinkson responded to that question, and he had literally no further communication. For 2 days, there was no communication between David Hinkson and this guy or the other members of the cell. Well, as the trial was beginning, we received a notification that the government was going to bring in evidence of other crimes, and they were going to bring in this Chad Kroner as a witness to say David Hinkson, even while he was in jail, was plotting the murder of 22 people. And so, as a result, when I learned about it, I took the time to interview each one of those other 4 inmates who provided me with written affidavits, sworn affidavits, stating that they were in the jail cell and Kroner did not have any conversations with David Hinkson, and their quarters were so close that if there had been any conversation, they would have known it. So you have 4 witnesses, including David, that said it never happened, and you have Chad Kroner coming into court, and the judge declared him to be a credible witness, and he was telling this absolutely bogus story about David trying to hire him to murder a bunch of people. And this is a part of the repeated pattern. They just keep fomenting and enlarging and exaggerating things like this. So when I enraged the FBI by defeating their little plot to add additional charges to David Hinkson over this Chad Kroner business, then the FBI decided to go after me. So they went to one of the 4 other individuals in that jail cell, and I don't know what they offered him. His name was Frank Nicolai, but Frank ended up under some very severe pressure signing a witness statement saying that I was participating in a murder-for-hire plot to kill 22 people, including Judge Tallman. And supposedly the way I was participating was that I was going to be giving free legal services to Nicolai in exchange for him going out and murdering these 22
he's in prison.
Of course, he's in prison. It's impossible for him to do anything. But that doesn't, the logic of that doesn't mean anything to the FBI. They don't think like that. They just want to get some more bogus charges so that they can keep David Hinkson in jail. That's their job, to keep David Hinkson in jail, to get a conviction against him, and by golly, they're going to do their job.